A very good morning to you and welcome back to K24 this morning. It's Tuesday, so let's talk about money and finance. And today, I want to focus on something that you guys are used to, which is mobile money lending, or what you call digital mobile money lending. And I'm joined by Mr. Ivan Boa. He's the GM of Tala East Africa. But before I get to that one, let's look at our question of the day. Kindly let us know what your thoughts are. Are you ever keen on reading the terms and conditions before borrowing money online? Are you ever keen on reading the terms and conditions before borrowing money online? K24 TV across all social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. WhatsApp as well is right there on your screen. And please call us. Would love to hear your voice on this particular one. I'll be hoping to be joined by Mr. Kevin, who is the chairman of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya. If he makes it on time, then definitely that conversation will go on. But right now, since I'm with Mr. Ivan. Ivan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah? You're Salama?
Yes.
You look like you're having a stress-free life. When everyone else is complaining about January and being broke, you are the guy with all the money, just giving it out left, right, and center.
I wish that were the case. It's
Really?
more like a duck on water. It looks stable and calm, but underneath,
Yeah.
paddling furiously. You know?
Tell me about Tala. When did you guys start?
So Tala has now been in the Kenyan market. This is going to be our 7th year. We began in 2014. And at that time, right after Mshwari, we were the first people to actually develop a mobile lending app where you could simply download it and we could determine whether or not you could get a loan and disperse it through mobile money. And since in the 6-7 years, there have now been hundreds of people come in who are very much the pioneers. We've been able to successfully serve well over 5 million Kenyans. We've taken our model across the world. We're now in India,
Really?
in the Philippines, in Mexico.
Tala
Yes,
is
Tala.
in the Philippines.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if I download the app here in Kenya, I can still use it in the Philippines, or I need to download a special one for the Philippines?
You'll most probably have to download a special one for the Philippines.
all right.
It's almost like a sort of global digital bank. You can think about it. And each country is its own, small branch.
So you guys have all this money back and now you're giving it in the Philippines. But it started in Kenya.
It started in Kenya.
It was born here before it branched
Born
out.
and raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how many people would you say Tala has served to date, roughly? I know you wouldn't have an exact figure, but roughly, how many people have you served to date?
Well, when we celebrated our 5 years, I think we at that time had close to maybe 3 million.
3 million Kenyans.
Yeah, 3 million Kenyans.
All right.
Yeah.
And do you have regular customers who come in and just borrow money and then they pay it on time? Or is out of the 3 million, 2.5 have run away with your money? How is that? How would you classify the relationship between you and your customers?
Sure. So while I can't go into specifics, I'll say the vast majority of our customers have taken loans responsibly and repaid it. Of course, always those customers that have struggled, perhaps have not taken loans with the right ability to repay or the right intention to repay. But more or less, if you actually look at why people take money from Tala, we've done research showing about 75% of them actually doing it for small business purposes. So I know there's a lot of, let's say, misconception that people are taking Tala to perhaps engage in sports betting.
Gamble, yes.
Right, or perhaps to fund a Friday night. You might have a few isolated cases, but we wouldn't be alive, for 7 years. And in other countries, if those were our customers. So the vast majority of our customers have been responsible, and we're excited to serve them.
So what is the least amount of money I can borrow from Tala if I'm a new customer, and what is the maximum amount I can borrow?
Sure. Most of our customers will start at a minimum 1,000 Kenya shillings, on average to about maybe 5,000 at the start. And the maximum you can go to is about 30,000 shillings, but we're actually addressing this right now. We expect to be able to actually offer new tenors, new amounts pretty soon.
So what determines my limit that I can borrow 1,000, 5,000, or even 30,000?
Sure. At the beginning, we start everyone low, right? It's a game of, we need to learn how you are and how you behave as a borrower. Are you here to defraud us? Are you here because you actually have a genuine purpose? And as you successfully take loans and repay them, we almost ladder you up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And those customers who are at 30,000 reflect those who've borrowed from us multiple times and have demonstrated the ability to repay on time.
I know you've mentioned and you said that Tala is now more or less like a global bank of sorts, but how would we classify you? Because we can't call you a bank, we can't call
Correct.
you a SACCO,
Correct.
we can't call you a microfinance. Like, what is Tala?
So Tala is what we call a non-bank fintech, or a non-bank credit-only provider. So to differentiate us from MFIs and banks, we don't rely on going to the public and asking for deposits to lend. We actually typically our capital comes from institutional investors and others. So we'll approach much larger institutions, we'll show them this is our portfolio, they will provide us capital, we then on-lend it. And so yes, we're not a bank, to be clear. Tala is not a bank. We are a non-bank credit-only provider.
Yeah. So, again, you said that much of your capital comes from institutional investors. So where do these guys come from? Is it a normal person like myself? Can I take maybe 100,000 of my money and invest it into Tala and say that, look, I'm giving you guys 100,000 and I probably expect a profit of X amount of money after X amount of time?
So at the moment, no. We can only deal with what we call investors who understand the risk. They typically tend to be pension funds, investment funds. We're actually in talks right now, even with some institutions in Kenya as well.
Yeah.
Historically, it has been more US-based investors, but we're actually seeing a lot of demand and interest actually from Kenyan investors who are saying, we also want to invest in this industry.
The interest rates, are they any higher than a bank's interest rates or a SACCO, for instance?
Yeah.
Is it a 10%? Is it 30%? What are the interest rates like?
Sure. That's a question we get a lot of the time. If you actually look at rates, unlike a bank, we don't provide credit for up to 12 months. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison. Many times people will say, well, banks are charging 18% per annum. You as Tala are charging maybe 5% for 30 days. What actually happens is that our maximum loan tenor is 30 days. On average, people borrow from 21 to 30 days.
Okay.
If you were to approach a bank for a similar amount of funding, although they might advertise 18% interest, they'll charge you a facility fee, they'll charge you maybe a drawdown fee, and it actually adds up. So you typically find that what we've done is we've simplified how we do our pricing, but it's very hard to actually compare, say, Tala compared to a bank, only because most banks actually focus on much longer term funding. But on average, would say that our very best customers can borrow at rates of 5% for 30 days, which is actually even lower than some very well-known large bank fintechs.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So if what do I require right now if I was to borrow money from Tala, and how soon would I get it? Like, I have an emergency now.
Yeah.
My landlord is on my case and I need to pay him rent. So how long will it take for me to register and borrow money from Tala?
Literally minutes. Go to the Google Play Store, download the app, go through our application, agree to the terms and conditions, and make sure you read them, please.
Yeah.
Then you know, go ahead and you get an automatic response in terms of whether you're approved or not. And once you're approved, you can actually go ahead and request for dispersal or drawdown.
Yeah.
So you literally minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So once I borrow the money, because we've heard of people who have borrowed money and they have, say, like 21 days to pay, but they haven't paid. So what happens? Do I get penalized? What happens?
So we try and work with our customers to understand what's happening. Especially last year, I think was a great example. COVID happened to everyone. You know, no one is immune. If they shut down and you can no longer move between your house and your place of work,
right?
Your customers are no longer coming to your shop. It would be unfair for us to immediately go and penalize you. So we need to determine, are you unable to pay even though you want to pay? And so we'll actually give a grace period. Typically, it'll be 7 days.
Yes.
And then we'll have our loan collection agents begin to speak to you and understand, maybe can we do a payment plan? Can we actually maybe pay something small and then, you know, a balance over time? I think what most people don't realize is that you don't need to pay everything back on day 21 if you can't. What's important is to talk, to say, you know, wave the flag and say, you know, I'm in a little bit of trouble. Yes. This is what I can do. Can we figure it out? Yeah.
And will I be if I actually do, you know, call you guys in advance, say I was supposed to pay on the 21st day and I'm unable to pay on that day, does that mean that again, will I be penalized, or will my interest rate go higher? What will happen?
I wouldn't call it penalized, but what we do is we have what we call risk-based pricing, right? So the interest rate that is charged is not flat across all customers. It depends on how long you've borrowed from us, how much your repayments have been on time, so that's a factor.
Okay.
So if you have repaid on time consistently, your rate will be lower than someone who has experienced difficulties.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it penalized, but there'll be adjustments.
Okay.
Because your risk
has gone high.
Yes.
All right. Let's take a look at our question of the day in case you're just joining us. We are talking about digital lending, you know, the money that you borrow from all these mobile lending apps. And this is what we're asking you. Are you ever keen on reading the terms and conditions before borrowing money digitally? Are you ever keen on reading the terms and conditions before borrowing money digitally? K24 TV across all social media. And our WhatsApp line is right there on your screen. And as you do that, allow me to reintroduce my other guest again, like I mentioned, Kevin Mutiso, the chairman of Digital Lenders Association. Welcome to the show.
Asante sana.
You know, we're just having a conversation here with Ivan in terms of borrowing money, you know, from all these apps. How many apps do we have in the country so far that we borrow money from? I don't know if you have an exact figure, but, you know, roughly, how many apps do we have?
Well, every year it's been changing. I think now in 2021, we're not more than 100 in total.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the non-bank, non-regulated digital lending apps.
Oh, yes, because we have the ones that are, you know, from individual banks.
Yes.
Okay, so now this one are the independent ones.
Yes.
Okay, about 100 or so.
Yes.
Is there regulation in the industry in regards to that particular number? Are they all registered, or are they just, you know, private entities from even other countries that are operating within the country?
So it's digital lending in the non-regulated space is quite a new industry. We're barely 4 years old.
Okay.
And so what has happened is you have a dichotomy of two types of players. You have the types of players who are part of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya that have signed a binding code of conduct that basically creates and sets, you know, benchmarked rules that are globally, you know, global standard of how to do debt collection, how to protect data, etc., etc. And then you've got the other side, which is the more opportunistic side that we are not so sure. It's sort of a gray area on what their objectives are.
Yes.
And so that's a difficult question to answer, but the easier question is who are the digital lenders, who are the members of the DLAC association, and, you know, what do they stand for?
Okay.
Yeah.
So who regulates them? Is it a self-regulating body? Are they regulated by the CBK, for instance? Are they regulated by the Ministry of Finance, Treasury, or whatever? Who regulates them?
So currently we are limited liability companies. We register at the company registry. We don't have regulation per se, but we are working on it. Currently we've got the CBK amendment bill that's being debated in Parliament.
Right.
I think CBK has been very clear that the objective here is to regulate us, the non-bank digital lenders. So by end of 2021, they should be, we should be regulated.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's take a look at what our audiences are saying on social media. I believe we have a few messages on WhatsApp. All right. Let's go. The terms are very long to read and the need to borrow is instant. Normally, inakuanga kesi baadaye. This is Dennis from Kite. All right, Dennis, thank you very much. Honestly, who wasisomi sahi niko na deni ya over 5,000 na niliomba 2,600 wakanikata 718 ati service fee iko na 2% service fee iko na 2% increase daily. All right. I'm loving the Tala talk. My question is, I have a tech startup team and I heard you talk about investors. We have been working on our product for 3 years now and we are at a level where we need investors. How do we go about it? All right. Thank you very much for that. Okay, let me come back to you, Tala. Terms and conditions. Just how long are they? Because to be honest, even when you're downloading an app on you know, Google Play Store or on the App Store, you don't necessarily go through all the terms and conditions. You just accept because you need the money. Whether you accept them or not, you need the money. So how long are they?
Let me answer your question with an observation. Our terms and conditions are shorter than most banks' terms and conditions.
All right.
If you were to actually literally go to a bank branch and you ask for a loan, it's approved, and they give you the paperwork. We've actually done our best to make sure it's user-friendly. We're aware that most of our customers are using a small device, a small screen.
Yes.
So you can't give them a book to read, effectively in wordings. But at the same time, from a legal standpoint, if we don't include certain provisions there, we're at risk.
Okay.
A consumer could come back and say, "Oh, Tyler, I loved your short terms and conditions, but you didn't actually tell me about the fact that you're going to do X, Y, Z."
Okay.
That would expose us. So it's a tricky balance, right? We know that people are going to view it in a less than optimal setting on a tiny screen. At the same time, if we remove things, we're also at risk. Yeah. Even you're at risk. You don't know what you're agreeing to. So on those terms and conditions, I don't see how they can get shorter.
For the sake of mathematics, because there's a gentleman who has said that he borrowed 2,600 and now he's paying, I think he mentioned 5,000. If I borrow 1,000 bob right now, just how much of that 1,000 am I getting? Am I getting a full 1,000 bob, or am I getting 1,000 minus some amount?
No, typically what will happen is that you should be able to get the full 1,000, and you will then pay an amount on top of that, which is the service fee or the charge. However, if you're trying to withdraw that cash on M-Pesa, then you pay the M-Pesa fees.
Of course.
So that, unfortunately, we cannot sort of control. So I think I saw that notice over there, and I'm not sure it's actually a DLAC member, because they appear to be suggesting that the late fee seems to accumulate. I saw a comment saying it's going up 2.5% every day. That is actually something that we as Digital Lenders Association of Kenya are vehemently against.
Okay.
Right? It is the idea that, for example, as Tala, if you are late on our loan, you have a one-time late fee.
Okay.
Flat. And it doesn't matter how late you are. So if you're late,
is it a certain percentage, or is it a flat fee of X amount?
It's typically a percentage on the loan amount. So if you're late 10 days, 50 days, 100 days, 200 days, it doesn't increase. It's a one-time fee. So
if I borrowed, and this one I'll direct you to DLAC, if I borrow from members of your association, that means that I will, if I borrowed 5,000 bob, and then maybe I have a late fee of, again, for the sake of mathematics, 100 bob, my deni will be 5,100 until the day I pay that amount? Or does it keep on increasing? If the first month is probably 5,100, then the next month it's probably 5,200, then the other month it's probably 5,500, and before I know it, you guys need 18,000 from me, and I have absolutely no idea how it got to that.
So I saw somebody saying itakuwa kesi. No,
kesi badai.
Kesi badai. DLAC members were very, very clear, right? Our products are actually meant to help. They're meant to assist. And the objective of our loans is not to make people impoverished, but actually to empower them. And so the objective, as my friend Ivan has said, is that if you're late, DLAC members charge a one-time late fee. Okay. Right? And the idea there is that we know that you're late. We won't punish you too much, but we also have to cover some expenses because you're late. So because we are partners, because that's how lenders look at customers, as partners, we will charge you something to cover our cost, but when you're able to pay us back, and we'll continue our relationship as it was before.
Yes. Yeah. And the people who've complained, I'm actually a very good example. There's a time I was called because a friend of mine had borrowed money.
That's not a DLAC member.
That's not a DLAC member. So I was called and I was told, your friend, let's give him a name, Patrick. Patrick, do you know Patrick so-and-so? I'm like, yeah. So he owes us money. And I'm like, okay, so how am I connected to Patrick in terms of the money that he borrowed? Because he didn't borrow that money on my behalf. So why are you guys calling me? Why do you think that happens?
And that's my point. DLAC members follow the Kenyan law to the letter. Okay. Data Protection Act 2019 is very clear about which kind of data you can collect and what you can do with that data. So the lender that Patrick used basically took your data without your consent, because they're supposed to ask, can I call you? Can I take this data? Sure. They took it without your consent. So they've already broken the law. So it's actually an illegal act that they did. And actually what tends to happen is once you report, and at the CIS, we have the Credit Information Sharing Association. If you report that case there, there's a thing called the Tatua Center. And at the tattoo center, they will make they'll make a case and will have that lender disbarred from using SMSs. And we've done that before. In fact, we did one just in December as DLAC.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. Interesting. Because I get calls. My friends keep borrowing money. I know guys
Report them. Report them. They're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Yes.
Corona did come through in 2020, and a lot of companies had to shut down. Others had to, restructure their business models and so on and so forth. DLAC, how did you come through for the Kenyan consumer?
Well, the first thing we did is we had a waiver on that one-time fee on the late charge. What we felt, we wanted to sort of echo what the president had said in March. He had sort of given some reprieve to borrowers. And as, citizens of Kenya and as business people, we thought, how can we support this initiative? And so we decided to waive our late fees in 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like us to take a short break, but when we return, of course, to look at some of the feedback from the audiences. Tala is here, guys. Kama uko na deni na unataka discount.
Take it.
We'll be right back.